Kia ora. I know this must sound like an exciting topic, referencing, but bear in mind that this all relates back to the topics we discussed on week 1. If the issue is that we have to consider even more carefully which sources can we trust in this knowledge age, we need to acknowledge those sources. I'm here to remind you that there are a number of reasons why it is important to use referencing in your work. Here's 5 whys. First, it's important since by acknowledging where you have taken your ideas from the work of others, you are giving them due credit for their work. Secondly, if you are able to back up the statements you are making in your own work by referencing credible sources, your own work will also be more credible. And third one is that by fully referencing the work of others, you are more clearly highlighting the elements of the work where you are making your own contribution. And in the Mind Lab assignments, we want your own learning journey to be present. So differentiate your own thoughts from the sources you cite. Fourth, by clearly identifying the sources for your work, you enable interested readers or viewers to find out more by going to those sources themselves. And naturally, it would be awesome if you can share the assignments videos with your peers, part of your appraisal and so on. We are sure that there are interested readers and viewers out there. And finally, correctly citing your sources avoids any accusations that you may have plagiarized the content of your work. So remember to give credit to the sources that made you learn and think. The most important part of the reference are authors, title, and the publication date, though additional information is usually required depending on the type of the resource. The main types of sources that you will need to cite and reference in your work are books, book chapters, journal articles, conference papers, and non-academic publications such as policies, curricula, and so on, websites, videos, magazines, or newspaper articles. And there are naturally a few other possible sources, but this is a good list to start with. And for consistency, it is important to use one of the recognized referencing styles. And at the Mind Lab, we use the American Psychological Association's referencing style, APA in short, which is really popular in the social sciences around the world. For example, here I have a quote from Chelsea Lee from the blog post she wrote in 2011 about APA referencing, in which she stated that when you use others' ideas in your paper, you should credit them with an in-text citation. Several different systems of citations are used in various academic communities, such as footnotes and endnotes, but APA style uses a kind of parenthetical referencing called the author date system. So that means that as an in-text reference, I mentioned the author, just her last name, and the year when that blog post was published. Important thing to notice is that it isn't until the end of my presentation where I should list the whole reference, including the links. So there are 2 main parts to APA referencing your work, and those are these in-text citations where you mention just the author and the year, and at the end you'll put one reference list that you gives kind of more detailed information of the sources you have in-text citations about. And remember to keep those in-text citations brief. Paraphrase where you can. There's multiple ways of doing this, and here are a few examples. They could be that your in-text reference looks like the first one, where I mentioned the author and the year at the point where I actually refer to the author's ideas. In this case, Siemens's ideas about connectivism. Or a slight variation is the second one, where I want to refer to the author's name directly in the text. In this case, only the year appears in the parentheses. Otherwise, it would look a bit ugly, and I'm sure APA is all about beauty. And the third example shows that if we are citing word to word from the source rather than paraphrasing, we need to put the passage in quotes and provide the page number if that is available. And as you may now realize, on the previous slide, I didn't have pages. There wasn't a page number since it was from a blog, which don't have page numbers, but even ebooks do have pages, so remember to put that in if it's a direct quote. And the other important part of APA was the reference list at the end. So this is an example what it could look like. In the reference list, you provide the complete information about all the sources that you have directly referenced in your work. Keep in mind not to include other sources that you may have read or seen but not directly written about or talked about. So not those that you have left out. That would be called bibliography. And in APA, people are interested to see just the sources you have actually used in your final work. Remember to provide the full details of each of the sources used, like I have shown here. This is an example where I have included several different types of references on purpose. Note that the list appears in alphabetical order of the author's surname. There's a first one is a journal article with multiple authors, then there's a book, a web page where I have included the retrieved from part and a link. Then after that one, there's an online article from a ministry web page, a book chapter. After that, also mentioning where which book it comes from. And there's the blog post that I had in text reference before. So this is where at the end I would have the full reference that also includes the URL address. There's another blog post that I cited before, and then a conference paper. Good to note is that it includes the month of the conference, and the last one is an example of newspaper article which includes the full date. These references can be written manually, but as you may realize, it can be a tedious and in most cases even unnecessary job, since there are helpful tools out there. We'll show you later on how to find, for example, the APA style reference from the eLibrary databases straight to your reference list. And just remember to breathe. If you haven't done referencing in a long time, you'll learn little by little. You have many weeks left to learn here at the Mind Lab, and a lifetime after that to rehearse the skill of referencing. So focus on the content, justifying how you and your students are learning something future-focused and meaningful. Use the Mind Lab eLibrary resources. Just learn to acknowledge your sources, keep calm, and learn to use APA little by little. And one last tip, if you use images in your assessment videos or essays, remember to mention the original source in the caption. You don't need to add those into the reference list, but rehearse to mention the source and use rights, where the picture is from. How do you know that you're entitled to use it as part of your work? If you just copy-paste someone's image online and don't credit that, it's considered stealing and plagiarism. So practice as you preach to your students about referencing pictures. The picture here happens to be done by me with a keep calm generator, and if you have pictures that you don't reference in your assignment, we assume that it's done by you. So whatever is not, remember to reference that. Just add the source in next to that. And yeah, that's it. Embrace your learning journey and remember to acknowledge your sources.